From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Governor Doug Ducey bans the testing of self-driving Ubers across the state, just as Waymo announces a plan to put customers in autonomous taxis in the valley.
Plus, early detection for diseases like Alzheimer's and heart conditions. We explore the life-saving benefits of genetic testing.
And bringing employees back to their childhood with Legos. How this company is using bricks to build creativity in the workplace.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Tyler Paley.
And I'm Noelle Lilly. Thank you for joining us. Today, Waymo announced its plan to release the first fully autonomous vehicle service this year, just one day after Governor Doug Ducey suspended Uber's driverless cars.
Reporter Emily Richardson has details and the public reaction to these announcements.
Governor Ducey tweeted this morning that Arizona will hold companies accountable and take action against any that show they are not ready for prime time.
It's going to cause more accidents. Like, it's bound to happen.
Waymo released a live stream today announcing its plan to send fully autonomous cars onto Phoenix streets later this year.
Now, we're going to launch our service, not in 2019 or 2020 or sometime after that, but this year in 2018, starting in Phoenix, Arizona.
Waymo's announcement comes less than 24 hours after Arizona Governor Doug Ducey announced he is suspending Uber from testing their cars in the valley. A decision announced after dashcam footage from the car that hit and killed a pedestrian was released. In a letter he sent to the company, he says in part, "I found the video to be disturbing and alarming, and it raises many questions about the ability of Uber to continue testing in Arizona." Uber responded saying that they had suspended self-driving operations in all cities immediately following the accident and will continue to help with the investigation. Waymo addresses safety concerns surrounding autonomous vehicles, but is still confident their cars are ready to be completely driverless. Enrique Garcia, who bikes and drives in Tempe, says that he's excited for the potential of self-driving cars, but believes they are moving too fast.
Obviously, you think it would affect it in a positive way because people will use it and it's fun and new. But at the same time, someone's going to get hurt.
The New York Times reports that leaked data shows, on average, Waymo vehicles travel 5,600 miles before driver intervention is needed, compared to Uber's 13. In downtown Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Today, Governor Ducey signed a bill to crack down on wrong-way drivers. Under the new law, impaired wrong-way drivers will face 4 months to 2.5 years in prison. Non-impaired drivers could get a $500 fine. Many wrong-way crashes happen at night, and Ducey is seeking $1.4 million to increase nighttime freeway patrols.
The White House says the construction of the wall along the U.S.-Mexico border is moving forward, amid reports that President Donald Trump wants to fund that construction through the U.S. military budget. This afternoon, Trump retweeted his own tweet from Sunday, which celebrated the $700 billion in funding to rebuild the military. He wrote, quote, "Building a great border wall with drugs and enemy combatants pouring into our country is all about national defense. Build wall through M." Sources familiar with the conversations say Trump also discussed the idea in a private meeting last week with House Speaker Paul Ryan as they reviewed the omnibus spending bill, which does not include the $25 million allotment Trump has demanded for the border wall.
I'm not going to get into the specifics of that, but I can tell you that the wall is continuing to be built currently, and we're going to keep pushing forward until it's fully completed in the way that the president feels is necessary to defend the country.
And isn't it true at this point that Mexico is just not going to pay for that wall?
I'm not going to go beyond what the president's already said. I think he still has plans to look at potential ways for that to happen.
Trump has said publicly that he would seek payment for the wall from Mexico in the form of a refund, either through trade negotiations, remittance payments, or other means.
The city of Los Angeles could soon be ending its ban on Arizona businesses enacted after the controversial SB 1070. The boycott bans city employees from traveling to Arizona on business and urged departments to avoid working with Arizona firms. The city council met earlier today, but discussion of the ban was not on their official schedule.
California is just one of several states now suing the Trump administration over its decision to add a question on U.S. citizenship to the 2020 census. Critics say the question will intimidate immigrants and discourage them from participating. Cronkite News reporter Ariana Bustos talked with one Valley leader in the ongoing census debate in Washington.
Mesa Vice Mayor David Luna, who spoke at a conference on the census, worries the addition of the citizenship question will hinder the one job the census is supposed to do.
The Constitution calls for persons. Persons are individuals that live in your community. What we're afraid of is that if a person is required to put whether he or she is a citizen, that may hamper the process and the collection of the data necessary.
This matters because the number of congressional districts in a state and distribution of federal funds relies on an accurate count of population by the census. Luna is part of the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, an organization that says it will fight back against the question. Executive Director of NALEO, Arturo Vargas, released a statement saying, adding a question on citizenship at this time would only seek to fan the flames of fear and distrust in the census, further risking depressed response rates. But Hans von Spakovsky, a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, said the census will be inaccurate without the question.
Look, all the claims that this is somehow going to make the census inaccurate, you should think about the fact that if you're not asking the question at all, then the data you're collecting isn't going to be accurate either.
Von Spakovsky said the question provides necessary data for voting rights. David Olson, Associate Director of Field Operations at the Census Bureau, said recently the Bureau will work the same despite the addition of the question.
We're going to work with all of our partners to get the message out that it's important, it's safe, and it's really critical for the future of our nation.
He said not to worry.
Whether the census is 10 questions or 11 questions, our commitment is the same. We're going to count everybody.
Reporting from Washington, Ariana Bustos, Cronkite News.
The citizenship question has not been on the full census since 1950. But backers of the move note that the question does appear on the yearly American Community Survey. That survey is sent to about 2 to 3% of the population each year.
Teachers across the state continue their fight for higher pay. Tomorrow, educators and parents will gather back at the Capitol, 1 week after a teacher sick out. This time, the Red for Ed rally will be held after school hours, so they're not walking out. The goal is to pressure state leaders for new legislation on K-12 funding. We'll have full coverage tomorrow on Cronkite News.
While teachers demand higher pay, students continue to demand safety in schools. The March for Our Lives brought hundreds of thousands to gun control rallies Saturday in Phoenix, Washington, and other cities across the country. While the chants have died down, some say the echoes of another era remain. Cronkite News reporter Austin Bundy brings us that story from our Washington bureau.
This was the scene at Saturday's March for Our Lives. Causing many, like Marsha Davis, to be reminded of this.
Protests against the war persisted.
I am a marcher of generations. I have been doing this march for so long, and I'm not giving up.
Michael Kazin, a history professor at Georgetown University, said comparing the March for Our Lives to civil rights and anti-Vietnam protests is valid in some senses, but not in others.
Well, the anti-Vietnam War protests and the civil rights protests were not young people were very involved in them, of course, but they were not movements which were led by young people.
A key difference, Kazin pointed out, was the speed in which the March for Our Lives movement was organized, unlike past movements.
It would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to organize a anti-Vietnam War march or civil rights march in only a month after some horrendous event took place, like the shootings in Florida.
But Kazin believes the location of the tragedy played a much bigger role in the massive support gathered for the gun reform march.
If this mass killing had happened in in a rural high school in Kansas where most people are supportive of gun rights and many people are hunters and support the Second Amendment as defined by the NRA, I think it's unlikely they would have been active in the same way.
But those who were inspired to turn out Saturday included Sherry Gillis, who hopes the new generation can succeed where previous ones failed.
But I am very encouraged to see that these young people understand what it means to be politically motivated, politically active, and to make change in this world, because certainly my generation failed to do that.
In Washington, Austin Bundy, Cronkite News.
One way to make that change could be at the ballot box, as organizers of the rallies made voter registration a focus of the events.
Fundraising for a memorial to honor victims and survivors of the 2011 Tucson shooting has fallen short, and that means the memorial itself will be downsized. The shooting left 6 people dead and 13 injured, including former Representative Gabrielle Giffords. The Arizona Daily Star reports private donations fell $1.7 million short of the $4 million goal. The executive director of the January 8th Memorial Foundation says the memorial's outer walls will be reduced by 1/3 in size, but the other design elements will stay the same.
A mother in Superior, Arizona is facing murder charges after her baby and a toddler were found dead in their car seats. According to the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, the children were 2 years old and 10 months old. There was not any immediate information available on the cause of death, and autopsies will be conducted soon, according to the Sheriff's Office. Buckeye police confirmed today that the skeletal remains found 2 weeks ago are those of 10-year-old Jesse Wilson. Jesse disappeared from his home in July of 2016. The department issued a statement that read, in part, "Like so many of you across our community, we are devastated by this news. While this is not the outcome for which any of us had hoped, we want to stress that this is not the end of our investigation."
A recent report ranks Arizona as the worst state in which children face traumatic experiences. America's Health Rankings released their annual Health of Women and Children report. These traumatic experiences include things like parent divorce or separation, witness to domestic violence, living with someone who is severely depressed, mentally ill, suicidal, or addicted to alcohol or drugs. Even though Arizona is in last place, parenting experts say there is a solution.
In order to create healthier communities, we have to create healthier families, and addressing parenting is one of those ways to do so.
States with scores similar to Arizona's include New Mexico, Arkansas, and Louisiana. North Dakota was ranked number 3, Maryland came in second, and New York with the number 1 spot. While there may still be no cure for diseases like Alzheimer's, early signs can be found for those at risk by studying their genetic makeup.
That's right. Coming up on Cronkite News, we take a look at how doctors are detecting and preventing diseases earlier through testing genes.
And we go to the 15th annual Dragon Boat Festival in Tempe and show you how these people are paddling with a purpose.
Editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
Today, Arizona State Treasurer Jeff DeWitt announced he'll be lifting off to his new position as NASA's CFO early next week.
Our slogan a few years ago was "Make America Great Again," and I have settled on a new slogan of "Make the Galaxy Great Again," and that's what I'll be doing at NASA.
The United States Senate unanimously confirmed his nomination earlier this month after being nominated by President Donald Trump last year. DeWitt worked on President Trump's 2016 campaign as Chief Operating Officer. His replacement will be appointed by Arizona Governor Doug Ducey. The office has not announced who just yet, but we are told it will be someone who's not currently running for office.
From the immense study of space to something much smaller, genetic testing can discover the tiniest mutations that could develop into health problems. Cronkite News reporter Jamie Fossenkemper talked to a patient who opted for testing after the death of her father.
Patients have to decide if they can handle knowing they are predisposed to major health problems, even if there may not be a cure.
That you honestly have no idea about unless you obviously are tested.
Gene testing identifies changes in chromosomes, genes, or proteins. The results can detect a suspected genetic condition or help determine a person's chance of developing one or passing one on.
These tests look at one's genetic makeup and how a drug you may respond to a certain drug.
Jacqueline Madlam's father passed away at the age of 50 from early onset Alzheimer's. Because of this, she got tested to see if the gene was passed on.
I just wanted to know, like, if I was predisposed to that or like what was going to happen, and I actually was.
Although there's no treatment for Alzheimer's at an early stage, she is making lifestyle changes.
I know I want to keep my brain healthy, eat healthy, work out a lot just to keep like my blood flow going up there.
Doctors say that early detection is the key, no matter what the possible diagnosis.
Early detection and early prevention, better treatment, and better outcomes.
Although gene testing can be very beneficial, Dr. Burns says what keeps patients from doing it is the cost.
It can cost as much as $250. To get a panel to look at things like aortic diseases, it could test for as many as 20 or more aortic diseases. It probably costs in the area of around $500.
Madlam is confident that gene testing is beneficial and believes it will help her in the long run.
I think it will help everyone by getting gene tested because I think you'll just know like the roadmap of your body and what you can do to benefit yourself.
The cost of genetic testing can sometimes be covered by insurance, but many times the patient must pay out of pocket. In the broadcast center, Jamie Fossenkemper, Cronkite News.
A current take on an ancient sport.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how the 15th annual Dragon Boat Festival is bringing together more than just spectators.
And things have felt just like spring so far this week, but we'll have days in the 90s. I'll tell you when, coming up.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
Fridays, it's at Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Then join us for at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh, each Friday at 5 on Arizona PBS.
About 5,000 athletes, families, and friends gathered at Tempe Town Lake over the weekend, celebrating an ancient sport with a rich history which began in a faraway country. Cronkite News reporter Alexis Burdine was there and shows us what it was all about.
It was a race to the finish line as several teams participated in the 15th annual Arizona Dragon Boat Festival over the weekend in Tempe. Some of the boats propelled by cancer survivors who paddled with a purpose.
And it takes a team of people and friends to be able to beat cancer. And when we do the races, we're honoring each other and we're also honoring the ones who've left us.
People from all over the valley came out to watch performances, cheer on paddlers, and shop. Other supporters like Mike Szymanski came all the way from Alaska.
They do a great job for supporting people with disabilities. As you may see, I've only got one leg myself. And these dragon boat events are just spectacular because you see people out there, old, young, athletes.
While these boats are crafted to look like dragons, the history of the sport actually doesn't have that much to do with the mystical beasts.
The sport began about 2,000 years ago when a poet, Chu Yen, who was loyal to China's emperor, was framed for treason and forced into exile.
And he was so ashamed that he was found guilty even though he wasn't guilty. What he did is he committed suicide by driving in the river.
Those who knew the beloved poet didn't want him to die with dishonor, so they took their long fishermen's boats and searched for his body in the middle of the river, beating drums to scare the fish away, thus creating the origin of this ancient Chinese tradition. In Tempe, Alexis Burdine, Cronkite News.
While the festival provides a weekend filled with fun and activities, it also serves a greater purpose. This particular dragon boat racing event helped support Arizona disabled sports, among other charitable causes as well.
So Noelle, I can't believe this. It's the last week of March and we already have the 90s in our sights.
I know. Courtney Malley is tracking our forecast in the Weather Center.
Thanks, Tyler and Noelle. So our current temperature outside right now feels like a typical Arizona day, 74 degrees, clear skies with some light winds. Let's take a look at our valley temperatures for this evening. They are going to drop into the mid to lower 50s due to a low pressure system coming in from California. So if you can see here, it's going to be 50 in Phoenix tonight, 50 in Tempe, 47 in Mesa, 53 in Whitman, 51 in Buckeye, and 47 out in Goodyear. However, those low temperatures are going to switch to high temperatures when a high pressure system comes in just in time for the D-backs opening night on Thursday night. So our high temperature is going to be 86 degrees on Thursday before our first pitch at 7:10 p.m. against the Colorado Rockies. So be sure to have a little extra water that day if you're coming out to the game. Now, for the next 3 days, our highs are going to be 81 tomorrow, 86 Thursday, 91 on Friday. As your weekend starts, it's going to be 93 degrees on Saturday. So if you wanted to go on a hike, walk your dog, be sure to get out early. Otherwise, things are going to be a bit toasty for you guys. And for you who celebrate Easter, your high is going to be 89 degrees with some light cloud cover. In the Weather Center, I'm Courtney Malley.
Building teamwork with Legos.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how this company is taking a creative spin on helping their employees improve business skills.
Cronkite News, weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
Third Rail with Ozzy, the new weekly show where we tackle the taboo and debate the tough questions with some of the most interesting minds in the game. I'm Carlos Watson, electrifying conversation, Friday, only on PBS.
A new program here in Arizona is bringing toys into the office, all in an effort to spark communication and creativity. Reporter Michaela Moorhead shows us how it's all happening with Legos.
Block by block, play is essential to all ages. One company is using Legos to develop teamwork in the business world. Lego Serious Play provides skills on how to communicate through hands-on activities for grown-ups. Cindy Lauren was just one of the people acting like a kid for a day. She plans to build Lego creations with her management class.
It really helps people articulate their thoughts and feelings around business concepts that tend to be very abstract, like build a model of leadership, build a model of teamwork.
One main component in the workshop is thinking metaphorically through objects. The goal? To help improve communication. Camilla Jensen, who is leading the class, believes Legos can lead to learning.
There's definitely a value to having like the tangible, the objects to speak about. That's a core component of the process, because it allows people to put their thoughts and their values and embed that into a physical object.
Legos do more than just improve communication in the workplace. Ryan Coffrin, an Army veteran, says it helps vets like him transition into civilian life and express themselves.
When we have them build and start thinking more metaphorically, people start just naturally opening up more about what their experiences are actually like, some of the problems they face, some of the aspirations they have.
Lauren believes learning through play is a methodology more businesses should use.
This is going to be a super effective tool to help create common language and help companies move forward.
By bringing them back to their childhood. In Mesa, Michaela Moorhead, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, a debate on an attempt to put further limits on the state's Clean Elections Commission, and how one business is helping its docket employees who are facing uncertainty over their legal status.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, former President Jimmy Carter criticizes President Trump's pick for National Security Advisor and weighs in on North Korea. That's Tuesday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.